Good morning. My name is Jason, and the point of my channel is to talk about basically the ups and downs of living off-grid. So I purchased an off-grid property with a house a little over 2 years ago, and there's definitely a lot of things that I have discovered over that time period that I was not aware of getting into this. This is my first off-grid property. I have no experience prior to this dealing with solar or generators or anything really that goes along with not being grid tied. So I'll show you my house here in a little bit, but it's a very unique design. The guy who built it back in the 80s built it for both active and passive solar. He took both of those into consideration. The house is a bit odd, at least on the outside. It's not bad on the inside. I like the inside a lot. The outside, not a big fan of it, but it's built very well. It's mostly made out of cinder block and cement board on the outside, and it's insulated very well. And overall, it's very sturdy. It's not going to go anywhere. I live right next to a little river, and I'm in a floodplain, unfortunately, which really stinks because I got to pay flood insurance. That's not great at all. It's expensive, more than I realized, but it kind of goes around with the property. It goes with the property, living here. So I'm not really too concerned about the river washing the house away per se, but it is always a threat for causing damage. My understanding, since this property's been built, there's never been a flood that's gotten to the house. It's been up fairly high. I've seen it somewhat. I've not seen it excessively high. It did come across our driveway, which is very long, but not to the point where we couldn't get through. So I really don't know what to expect in the future if we do have a major flood of some sort, but I'm really not worried about the house being damaged, at least too damaged, because of how well it's built and the fact that it's not made out of 2x4s or anything that's going to rot. It's all cinder block. It does have a basement, which is a concern with that, and causes the flood insurance to be even more expensive because there's a basement. But again, I'm not too concerned. Another reason I'm not very concerned with a flood in that regard is because all the utilities are in the second floor of the house, and the first floor is actually a few feet above the ground level, and we're built up a little bit off the river level. So I'm not too concerned about that, but it is always a threat. It is always a concern. And I could lose my generator, my permanent generator installation outside in the event of a flood, and damage to the basement. And I do have stuff stored in the basement and stuff like that. So there's always risk there. But one of the things that I discovered living off-grid, I'll get back to what I originally wanted to talk about here, is that things break and a lot of unexpected things happen. One of those things is my permanent generator installation died this past April. I'm still in the process of trying to replace it. The manufacturer of that generator no longer supports that specific model. It was an off-grid geared model, so it's designed to have a lot of runtime and not need a lot of maintenance, which was great originally. But now they no longer make that model and they no longer support it, which has been very frustrating, because the vendor or the dealer that installed it said that they can't fix it, they can't get parts for it. I'm kind of stuck replacing it. Not that generator really owes me anything. It's got over 6,000 hours on it. And the model, it's a Generac, and again, it's been good while it worked, and it's got over 6,000 hours, which I think is quite a bit to expect out of a generator, or a backup generator anyway. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I mean, you can tell me that. But I really don't feel like it owes us anything. It would have been nice to keep it going, but at this point I'm replacing it, and that has been very pricey. I'm gonna move because of the sun here. But it's been very pricey to replace it, and I'm still in the process of doing so. I don't have a ton of money to throw at it, which, being off-grid, it has caused a lot of unexpected expenses that I was not prepared for. even though I did some research on this first. And honestly, I was really excited to get this property, mostly not because of the house or being off-grid, but because I love the property. It's got the river right next to it. It's in the woods. It's beautiful. It's a couple of acres, and I just like the idea of being off-grid and not being dependent on the utility companies. Although I do have propane, and you know, I have to get that delivered occasionally. There's no electric lines coming to the property at all. So, I mean, I'm kind of on my own back here, including with road access. I'm on my own to have road access, you know, and that's difficult too because there's a lot of dead ash trees around here and they're falling down on the road all the time. So another thing I found out that I had to have a really good chainsaw, which I currently do not. So that at times I borrowed them. I've gotten a little battery powered one for the wife, so that way she has a way to cut stuff up if I'm not around, to at least get through with her vehicle. But I didn't realize I'd be cutting up so many trees. I mean, I do burn firewood, so I mean, that is handy, and I'm definitely taking advantage of the trees that fall for firewood, but I wasn't expecting that. So other unexpected costs that I came across with this house is, first of all, it had a very unique water system. It does have a well and a well pump, which is great, but the house was originally built to utilize a gravity-fed water system. And there's actually a couple barrels in the attic that are all tied together to create gravity-fed water flow. And that's not really been that great because gravity does not give a lot of pressure, at least especially from that height. It's not very high, it's up in the attic. So it never really gave great water pressure. Previous owners that had this house, I'm not the first owner of this house, obviously. I'm probably the third or fourth, I forget, I have to look. But they've used little boost pumps to increase the water pressure for the shower, for the washing machine and everything, and you know, the sink for the dishes, the dishwasher. They all had little boost pumps, which not really economical when you're trying to run off solar and utilize a whole house battery. Economical in the sense that, you know, all that stuff uses power, and really had to learn how to conserve power. It's been a hard lesson for my family to learn how to conserve power. You know, previous homes, you know, leaving the lights on wasn't a big deal. I mean, it was always frustrating at the end of the month when you got the electric bill, but you know, it's not like you ran out of power. It's not like things would shut down or the battery would go into some kind of safe mode or something like that, or eventually shut down because pulling it down too far. So that's really, you know, been difficult as well, but you know, I've learned from that. We're learning how to be conserve power better, how to be more sensible about the power we do use. But back to the water system, that was definitely interesting because I eventually had to tear that out. I mean, the barrels were still in the attic. I haven't taken them out yet. I got to get them out. They're kind of mounted, so they're going to be a little bit of process to get them out. But I did eventually disconnect the water system from the attic barrels and directly plumb it into a, I'm trying to think what it's called, a pressure tank. So I installed a pressure tank in the basement, an 80-some gallon one, and that has definitely really helped with the house, with the water pressure. I don't have water pressure issues anymore. So the well pump will kick on and fill that tank up, and then the water pressure is great. Previously, when we had the gravity-fed water system, eventually it would run out of water. It would just, you know, you'd be getting a shower, middle of the shower, water pressure just dived down to nothing, and then you were standing there wet and no water pressure, right in the middle of your shower. So you'd have to get out. Luckily, the utility room is right next door to the bathroom, and I had to go flip on the breaker for the well pump because it was always kept off unless we were pumping water. The well pump would kick on, the water would go up into the attic through the pipes and fill up the 4 barrels that were up there. But then eventually it would get to the overfill, and there was a built-in overflow that would go down a pipe, and you could hear it rushing down the pipe, and then it would go down into our septic tank, which again, not ideal because that you're just filling it up for no reason. So you'd have to listen to it, listen for the overflow, and then when you heard it, you quick go and flip the breaker and shut it off, and then you had water pressure again, but it was gravity fed. So again, the pressure wasn't great. It was actually really great when the well pump was on, because then the system was pressurized by the well pump, which was awesome. It was, you know, a good time to get a shower while it was running. It would run for a few minutes. It didn't take very long to fill up these barrels, but you know, you'd have good pressure while it was happening. But eventually you'd have to shut it off, and then you were back to utilizing the little boost pumps, which weren't great. And one of the problems we had with that as well is, even though there's a boost pump on the washing machine, it didn't always want to work well. We would get errors on the washing machine. You'd be halfway through a load, and while it was filling, it would give an error on the washing machine, and it would just stop. And there's no way to reset the washing machine. I had to like basically start over. It would drain itself out and start again. And sometimes we just couldn't get a load of laundry done very well. So that was definitely a struggle with that. But eventually I did replace that, the tank system, the gravity fed system, and put that pressure tank in, which has been great. But again, that's a new cost. I wasn't expecting that. The previous owners just kind of lived with that, which was surprising because they were an older couple. They were retired and living here off grid, which is very surprising. But eventually they, you know, sold the place to us. So I do love the place. I do love the property. It's definitely difficult living here at times, but it's also very rewarding. It's nice not having an electricity bill, although I have generator bills and stuff that goes along with that. You can hear my generator running right now. That's because it's November and I'm not making much power right now, and we highly rely on the generator in the winter months to provide additional power, to recharge our battery, to provide just general electricity to the house. And for the last couple of days it's been overcast, and I've been having to unplug our freezer in our basement, and therefore I'm running the generator now to run that freezer to get it cold enough again. So it's something I'm had to monitor all the time. So definitely a lot more hands-on living off grid for reasons like that. But here, I'll turn and show you the house here from a distance. That is a house. It's very interesting looking. Again, it was designed to be passive solar, so the windows and the shapes in the front are designed to direct the sunlight into the windows. I got 8 panels on the front, I got 9 panels on the back of the roof, and they're kind of useless right now in the wintertime because the sun's in front of me right now shining on my face, and it's very low in the sky. So you also see there's a glass solarium for the basement, which is great for the winter for plants. My wife likes to grow plants year-round in there, although it does get cold down there. It does get good sunlight, and it is warmer than being outside. So that's where she stores a lot of plants that she has to move indoors in the wintertime. They go in the basement there in the solarium and they get light. So that is really nice for that. Although it also loses a lot of heat though for those windows, even though they are double paned. So, but it's been interesting so far, but again, there's been lots of ups and downs. I'll talk more about that later. And here's one right here. Here's my firewood for the winter. I don't have enough. I got really tied up this summer fixing vehicles, with both of our vehicles giving lots of problems, and I really didn't get time to process enough firewood. So that's a problem I'm gonna have to deal with sooner than later, especially since it's November and I'm only gonna have so much to burn and not really enough to get for the winter. The good thing is I also have propane in the house for heat, so that is a backup, but then I'm burning lots of propane, which is not ideal. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.